The Reform movement at one time was clearly anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and then they had a period when they were Zionists again. But now it's inexplicable. Rabbi Rick Jacobs, the head of the Reform movement, just gave a speech where he blasted Israel for occupation and for its settlements. These are the anti-Semitic canards of the boycott, divest, and sanction movement. Those haters of Israel, and the Reform movement has fallen lock, stock, and barrel in this anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, disgusting view. So let me just destroy it for you, any kind of analysis that made you think that there's something to this. First of all, Abbas this week admitted that he turned down an offer for a Palestinian state from Ehud Olmert, the Prime Minister of Israel. He turned it down, and it was the second time. Barak offered him the same thing, a deal to Arafat. 98% of the land with land swaps, they could have had independence. They turned it down, and they started intifadas, wars. So this idea that Israel's been entrenched in some way and wouldn't make concessions for peace was nonsense. Abbas has no Israel on a map in his office. He has repeatedly said there will never be a Jewish state. They honor terrorists who kill Israel. Now he's calling for Jewish blood and behind the stabbing effort that's going on. And that's the West Bank. What about Hamas, who openly in their charter says kill all the Jews and destroy Israel? That's part of this too. And that's what we're dealing with. The Palestinian people are a phony people. The word Palestine was created by the Romans 132 CE, 2,000 years ago, changed the name from Judea in order to de-Judaize the place. There were no Palestinian Arabs. There was Palestinian Jews for 2,000 years. The Jerusalem Post was called the Palestinian Post. The whole area was the chief rabbi of Palestine. There were no Arabs. In fact, the book Time Immemorial shows clearly that most of the people that call themselves Palestinians were actually Arabs from other areas that moved on when they saw that the Zionists were making the land better. There's no Palestinians in history. Tell me when the Palestinians existed as an Arab people. Tell me when they had coins and flags and any kind of national history. They don't. The Soviets made up the word Palestinians. The Arabs embraced it in order to weaken Israel. It's just a phony deal. And you think about this, you think about whether they can ever live in peace with Israel. 76% of the Palestinian today, the Palestinian Arabs, so-called Palestinians, support the stabbing campaign. 76%. And the vast majority support suicide bombing and killing of Jews. How are you going to ever make peace with them? And this whole idea about ending the occupation is the boycott, divest, and sanction movement, which is completely organized by Muslim Brotherhood terrorists. So the Reform movement in bed now with Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organizations, they're the ones on college campuses calling for the end of the occupation and free Palestine. And Students for Justice in Palestine and the Muslim Student Association, those are fronts for Muslim Brothers. So does CARE, the supposedly kind of organization of Muslims in America. And if you look at the polls of Muslims in America, 25% support suicide bombing and violent jihad. 51% want for Sharia. The American Reform Movement is going in league with those people that want to destroy Israel. And this idea that somehow Jerusalem is holy to Muslims, it's mentioned 700 times or so in the Hebrew Bible and 0 in the Quran. Muhammad just decided to say something about Jerusalem because the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was there and the Holy Temple was there, and they didn't want to be upstaged by Christianity and Judaism. And now the Palestinians are telling these filthy lies that the temple was never there, which insults both Judaism and Christianity, since the New Testament is full of stories about Jesus being on the Holy Temple site. And so when you think about it, this idea that the leader of the Reform movement would talk about occupation as if that land belongs to some phony people called the Palestinians, when it's disputed territory. There are hundreds of cases of disputed territory. And the best legal claim is it belongs to Israel. Certainly the Bible, the Reform movement doesn't believe in the Bible. The Bible says that land belongs to the Jews. By history, that land belonged to the Jews. It was the land of our ancient forefathers, our prophets. Jews have lived there forever. And it's disputed, and if Israel decides that somehow, someday, the Palestinians can be a peaceful people, they can live in peace, maybe there'll be a deal. But in the current climate, no one for the Reform movement to blame Israel, it's disgusting, it's despicable, it's reprehensible. They should be ashamed of themselves. Now, any Jew can continue to belong to a Reform synagogue when the leader of the Reform movement does this anti-Israel, anti-Zionist thing is beyond me. So if I were you, I would call up the Union of Reform Judaism office and call your local Reform rabbi, tell them how outraged you are by this.